What's up, guys? On this episode, it is all about the engine on our Virago 920 behind me. We have a lot of work to do, a little bit more than I anticipated, sure. We had to send the cams away to get reground down because they were all pitted and potted out. We have a little bit of clutch work to do. We need to fix and upgrade the starting system on it. We broke one of the piston skirts, so we have to put a used piston in with new piston rings. And this is not even to mention refinishing and painting the whole engine. So we better get started because we have our work cut out for us. You know what I really hate doing? Scraping gaskets. But it's a necessary evil. I feel like it's one of those things where I have all these skills and all these tools, but there's just no way around it, right? You just have to take out the razor blade and just spend hours and hours and hours scraping away, doing the monkey work. Now, if you really want to know how to do this well, and the best way I've found, I posted a whole separate video just on scraping gaskets, so watch that if you want off the channel, but otherwise this is just an abridged version. This is the best tool to do it. I'll put a link down below for this wheel. Next, we turn our attention to the valves. So we're going to clean up the valves, make sure they're good to be reused, make sure that there's no big pitting on the mating surface there, and if they are able to be reused, then we'll lap them into place. You can see that the cylinder heads and cylinders themselves, I got glass bead blasted, so they're all nice and clean, ready to go. After we get the valves set and the heads, then we'll turn our attention to the cylinders and hone the cylinders. I've decided a long time ago that this YouTube channel isn't going to be a how-to bunch of videos, right? So this isn't the best way. I'm not going to take you through step-by-step how to lap valves on a vintage bike, but this is the way that I chose to do it. This way, you can use the drill, so you get the speed of that, and with your finger on the valve, you get to control the pressure. It's sort of the best of both worlds for me. And the proof is in the pudding. These valve seats are now nice and perfect. There's no pitting. It looks great, and they'll seal great too. The next thing we have to do is hone the cylinders. Now, I know it's not true honing, nor is it boring. It's more like we're just refinishing, polishing the cylinders, I guess, removing any slight imperfections, because we are just using a flex hone brush. We're not using anything more aggressive. But the cylinders are actually pretty good. Here, check them out. They're in great shape. Now you can see slight imperfections just from sitting, but overall there's no gouges or scoring or anything like that. So the flex hone should remove all that very light rust with no problem at all. After you lubricate it up, I just use standard motor oil. It's time to start going to town. Remember, you're looking for that 45-degree crosshatch. And here's the finished result, and this looks pretty good. This is the absolute best way to tape for paint, is just to get perfect lines. After you tape, you take a hammer and just go around and knock on all the edges. That sort of breaks the tape already so that you can just peel it off. You very rarely even need a razor blade at all. It comes off so easy, and you just get absolute perfect lines. Now you just take some wax and grease remover to everything. Now you're ready for paint. I decided to start with a self-etching primer. I know a lot of people say that nowadays with the modern enamel primers you don't need self-etching anymore, but I kind of wanted to see how it would do. So I started with the SEM self-etching primer, then I went with VHT high-temp barrel paint. I'm not sure what makes their barrel paint different than their case paint, different from their exhaust paint. I mean, if it's all for the same temperature, you know. But either way, on top of all that, I put the gloss clear coat from VHT as well. Now, if you want satisfaction, you want to watch this. Look at how perfect these paint lines get using that method I showed you. Here, I'm going to shut up so you can just watch. Although a lot of people say it's not worth the trouble trying to get those nice silvery fin ends, I'm going to try to do it. So taping off the cylinder heads, I'm also going to tape off the ends of the fins in the hopes that I can get the paint sort of crisp enough to give them a nice silvery edge. I know what you're thinking. You're like, man, James, why go through all these steps? Why not just mix up some single stage paint and spray it with an automotive gravity-fed gun, right? And I have done that before in the past on engines too. Just take the whole engine out, hang it up, and spray it. And in some ways it's easier. I didn't even bother taking the cylinders off, but in some ways it's harder. First of all, with the engine complete like that, it's really hard to clean. Secondly, spraying inside like this, I have to tape off everything to make somewhat of like a jerry-rigged booth. Whereas this way, with the rattle cans, I can just sort of do it piece by piece, outside, inside. There's not tons of overspray everywhere. Kind of eager to see how well using this method will turn out. Oven cleaner. When's the last time I ever used some of that? Well, okay, it's been a little while, but this is what you want to use in this situation. The oven cleaner is insanely corrosive, so be sure you have your respirator on. And what this does is it eats through that upper finish from the factory on the aluminum, while at the same time cleaning it amazingly. Let it sit for 30 minutes, maybe even a little bit more, and then give it some good scrubbing. I just used a nylon brush, scrubbed the whole thing down, and then washed it all off with brake cleaner. And that leaves an amazingly clean surface that's ready for paint. Well, I'm really happy with how this turned out. This was my first time using this exact method, and it looks awesome. Not only is there not a single speck of dirt anywhere on this entire engine, but you can see the entire top coat of the aluminum is completely removed. So now it is completely ready for paint. I see a lot of people online just taking Scotch-Brite pads or light sandpaper to these engines. But, I mean, look at all of these little fins here underneath. How could you possibly get it clean enough? Before painting, I just went over everything briefly, not too crazy, with a Scotch-Brite pad, and then we're ready to go. Instead of taping off the side cavities, I just used some old case covers from one of the donor bikes that are sort of sacrificial in this situation. We start with the 2K epoxy primer, lay that down. I decided, remember, not to go with the etching primer this time. And then for the top coat, I went with a 2K satin hot rod black. You know, bikes can have too much gloss black, so I think the satin will look really, really sharp. Well, guys, our painting is mostly done. Our cylinders and cylinder heads, I'm going to let them cure for about a week or two, just sitting out drying before I bake them in the oven. And then our engine and rear drive, I'm going to let sit for maybe that same week or two, and then they should harden up as well. Everything went on pretty good. You know, I used a couple different methods depending on where I was painting, so I'm eager to see if it all holds up the same or if some areas wear quicker than others. But with the taping method and the painting method that I used, everything came out really, really good. Check out how good everything turned out. Thank you guys so much for all your patience as I work on this bike, getting these videos out. This isn't my full-time job like a lot of YouTubers, so I can't like pump out stuff like this every day. Stay tuned for the next one. We'll see you then. Thanks.